Greetings, shipmates. Welcome to this edition of Voyage of Rediscovery, a commemoration of the fall 1998 journey on Semester at Sea. Before we jump in, or shall I say dive in, a reminder that you can follow our voyage, access other conversations, check out all participant bios, learn about and contribute to the fall 1998 commemorative scholarship, as well as order swag from sas25th.com, and that's SAS25th.com. Dolphins, portside! All right, excuse me. Let's start the show. In today's episode, we speak with Cricket Myers. Cricket attended Colorado College and originally hails from Clarkson, Michigan. Cricket will tell us about how local theater and storytelling influenced her and shaped her present, as well as how a dragonfruit made her cry. It'll all make sense soon enough. Hop on board, everyone. Ship is leaving. What was your inspiration to go on Semester at Sea?
I knew I wanted to study abroad. I wanted to have a study abroad semester, and my parents were willing to make that happen. But I couldn't make up my mind where I wanted to go. There were like so many different places I wanted to go and so many different things I wanted to see. And I couldn't make up my mind. And then I read about Semester at Sea. I found it, some pamphlet somewhere and was like, oh my God, I can go lots of different places in one semester. And it was just very clearly the program for me, I wanted to see it all. So
It's amazing. Did you know anyone when you were going on? Did you go with a friend or have any?
nope.
Perfect. Just okay.
Yep.
That's good to know. Was there a particular port or a series of countries that you were looking forward to, perhaps more than others?
Not that I remember. I was excited about all of them. I was looking at a list of places that I could only dream about. The only place on the list that I was even vaguely familiar with was Italy, only because I had been to France. So I'd been on the same continent, Um, but they were all the kind of places that I'd always dreamed about going, but never thought I would. And then here they were all in one place. So
Was there anyone that influenced your decision to go, or is this something your parents were willing to support you in this? You identified that this was the trip for you because it had so much variety and
yeah, I mean, yeah, no one kind of inspired me, but my parents were very supportive. My parents had given me the travel bug early in life, so really it's all their fault. They took me to Europe. I spent my 13th birthday in Europe, so that summer I was in Europe and definitely caught the travel bug. They understood that I still joke any excuse to get out of the country and I'm gone. So they were supportive of my desire to travel, and I'm sure they were absolutely terrified to have me going to all these crazy countries that they had never even dreamed about traveling to. But they were very supportive about it. So
that's great. It's such a rarity when you can blame your parents for something that is actually positive.
yeah.
We could give them credit, but I prefer the negative view on blame. In any event, did you remember anything about your room, where you stayed? Was that an important place for you, either as shelter, a place to hide? Did you stay away from it as often as you could?
It really was just a place to sleep. I got along with my roommate just fine. My room was center of the ship. So when we hit all the bad weather, my room didn't move much. So I remember on some of those really bad nights, I'd wake up in the morning and people would be sleeping in the hallway outside my bedroom because it's where the ship was most stable. That's what I remember about the room, is that everybody wanted to be in that area because it was the most stable part of the ship. But I didn't have problems with seasickness. I haven't ever. I've traveled quite a bit by ship since. So I've never really had a problem with with seasickness. But I was also grateful for the room that didn't move much when seas got rough.
Yeah, I recall it was Typhoon Vicky, and I don't remember the rating of the typhoon, but it was probably the most serious storm I'd ever been in at seas. And everywhere you went, things were falling. You might slip in somebody's vomit or something to that effect. And I also had one of those rooms in the center, so I
Yeah.
wasn't necessarily on the seesaw.
Yep.
Definitely appreciate that. Well, that's great. Are there any moments in particular that stand out that were more influential than others that you perhaps return to now?
Yeah, I mean, and I think part of that's because I work in theater, and I think even then, I knew I was going to work in theater. The kabuki that I saw in Japan, the water puppets that I saw in Malaysia, the shadow puppets in China, the different forms of theater, the different forms of storytelling really stood out for me. And I remember those performances because they were so different than anything I had ever experienced before. And I didn't speak the language, and I knew the story that was being told. They were able to communicate emotion and journey and story, and I didn't have to understand the language. And it was the first time I looked at like what I wanted to do for a living and be like, I can tell these stories too, and I don't have to tell them the same way. Like there are lots of ways to tell these stories. So those definitely stood out for me. I remember I still talk about a meal I had in Vietnam. We were in a Buddhist temple, and I don't remember how we got there. We- but
We just arrived.
I think I was on one of the organized trips, maybe. I don't know. But I'm vegetarian, and so traveling, like it was a constant stress of like, did they understand what I ordered? Did they understand what I'm saying? Or is what I'm eating going to make me sick? And in the Buddhist temple, of course, the Buddhists are vegetarian too. So it was this enormous spread of incredible food, and I didn't have to think about any of it. And I remember at that point in the trip being very, very happy to just be able to eat and not. And then I still tell the story about the time the dragon fruit made me cry. It was again, like I was exhausted. I was homesick. We were like coming up on the middle of the trip. And it was just at that point where it was like, I was tired, and meals were continually stressful because I didn't know what I was eating. Even if the food was good, I'd worry that I'd get sick later. And we had had an excellent meal and I had enjoyed the meal, but I was very tired and very stressed. And they said dessert was fruit. And I was like, oh, thank God, it's fruit. Like, I'm going to get a banana. I'm going to get an apple. I know what fruit is. Like, I could take the fruit back to my room. I will have fruit. And they brought out this huge bowl of cut dragon fruit, which of course is white with black polka dots. And I just burst into tears because I had never seen that fruit in my life. And I just wanted a banana. But the next morning we went out, and a group of us were playing. We were playing on the beach in Malaysia, and this woman came by selling fruit, and we bought a dragon fruit and turned it into a football and had the most wonderful day playing football with the dragon fruit. So I made up with the dragon fruit the next day. I forgave it for making me cry the night before. But I went and saw the David in Italy, and of course the Taj Mahal is something I will never forget. The experience of standing outside of it and watching the sunset and watching it change colors with every minute is something that, like, Jesus, 25 years later is still a vivid memory.
I
I
was
went
going
back.
to ask, have you been back to any of the ports of call?
China is the only place I've gone back to. Like I'm determined to see the whole world. So I don't tend to go back. But I dated a guy who worked on the Olympics when the Olympics were in China. So I took advantage of him being there to go to China. So I had stayed in Hong Kong when I went on semester at sea. So we had popped into Hong Kong for a day because he had to renew his visa. But I actually got to explore China. And I remember when I signed up for semester at sea, my parents said that they would pay for one major side trip. And I had spent hours and hours and hours stressing between the Great Wall of China and the Taj Mahal, and picked the Taj Mahal. So when I got the opportunity to go back to China, I was like, I have to go to the Great Wall. it's the one I missed on Semester at Sea. So yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. So, how would you say that these experiences, I'm hearing it in your voice, but I'd rather ask you to put it in your own words. How would you say this experience shaped your presence, both in terms of what you're doing now and potentially the mindset that you bring to your day to day?
Well, I mean, for me, it's just, my mindset, it has always been, and I think Semester at Sea just really reinforced that, was that every day is an adventure, and I can learn something every day, and I can find something exciting in every day. And sure, I have bad days, but there are, like there's adventure out there, and I can't wait to go find it again. And I'm not scared to travel, and I'm not scared to walk into a country where I don't know the language or I don't know the people. And, I see it all as a potential to find new friends and learn new things and learn about a new culture. And I'm a storyteller. So I'm learning new ways to tell story and learning new ways to express myself and learning, because you get all of that from different countries. All the different cultures have different ways of expressing themselves. And I told my mom when I was little, I wanted to see all 7 continents before I died, and she laughed at me. And I'm only missing Australia. Semester at Sea was the majority of them there, but I've hit the rest of the meantime.
Wow, that's
So
incredible.
yeah, I hope to get to Australia the end of this year. I'm waiting to hear about a job. And if I get the job, I can't go to Australia. If I get the job, but if the job falls through, then I've got a trip to New Zealand and Australia that I'm planning to hit my 7th continent.
Amazing. That's a win-win right there. That's perfect. I'd love to just dig in a little bit more to what you're doing now. I love these how this journey has influenced your ability to tell stories
Mhm.
absent language or using non-traditional language, whether it be the elements of theater to be able to tell something that you wouldn't be able to say in words. But what are you doing with that specifically today? And I know it's a
Oh.
leading question since you're doing it professionally.
No, I'm a sound designer for theater. So I use sound and music to support the storytelling in theater plays. So I do all live theater, not movies or TV, but yeah.
That's
So
amazing. And you're out on the West Coast in the LA
mhm.
area, is that right?
Yes, although at the moment I'm in Ohio, so you never know where the world's going to take me.
Well,
So
that's
I'm
very
here
true
for
to form.
yeah. The show opens tonight, and then I'm driving up to visit with my dad in Michigan for the weekend. So
Oh, how nice.
yeah.
That's really lovely. That's really lovely. Is there any advice that you would either give to your younger self, or do you think that you heeded it at the time and there's really nothing to go back and say, I would have done this, or you should have done this, or perhaps thank goodness we did this?
I think it's a thank goodness we did this. Like I was a shy kid. I was a pretty shy kid. And by the time I got to college, I was starting to come out of my shell. And I think Semester at Sea was a really good jumping point there, because I walked onto that ship not knowing a soul. And it was like I had to make friends, and I was going to be traveling all over the world, and you need that connection, you need that thing to ground you. And this was all before internet and email. All of that. Like I remember sending letters home, and waiting for letters at ports.
I know when you said you were looking at a brochure and that's what made you consider going, that's how you
Yeah,
you
I was
know
like,
it
there
was
was
a
no
long time
website.
ago.
But yeah, so like just I was proud of myself for having that confidence to do it, and have done it so many more times in my life. And it's amazing how many people are like shocked to realize that I didn't know a soul. Like when I traveled to Antarctica, like I didn't know a soul on that ship. I just signed up and went. They're like, you went that far without knowing anyone? I was like, but I've done that, with my jobs too, that it was like, I grew up in Michigan. I went to college in Colorado where I didn't know a soul. I, moved out to LA not knowing a soul. Like took a job in Texas, and it's for the lifestyle I'm in now, like that's crucial. I travel all over the country. I have to be confident and comfortable walking into a new city where I don't know anyone, and I have to be confident walking into a theater or production where I don't know anyone, and then I have to collaborate with them for 3 weeks. So you learn to make friends quickly, and I think the experiences I had on semester at sea and meeting so many different people, both my classmates on the ship and the people I met in ports and the faculty that I, got to learn from and the kind of classes I took, it's like just not being afraid to take something totally outside your comfort zone. Like just jump out and do it, and you never know what you're going to find.
Amazing. Couldn't
Yeah.
have put it better, in my own opinion. I love how knowing someone is not a prerequisite in your life. And so that's great. And it sounds like you have maybe that gift or that trait innately, but you've been able to recognize it early enough, and it really lends itself to the success you're having professionally. Are there any relationships that you've maintained since then? Anyone that you keep in touch with, whether it's professors that are probably now retired or
Sadly, none of the professors, although there's some of them I wish I knew where they were. One of my closest friends on the ship, we still keep in touch, although it's more through Facebook now. I saw her. She used to live just outside of New York City. So anytime I went to New York, she'd come in and have lunch, but she moved and she's in Pittsburgh now. And that I haven't made it to Pittsburgh and she hasn't made it to
yeah.
LA. So we keep in touch over Facebook. Ironically, she ended up marrying someone I went to high school with.
Wow.
So I think that's another reason why we keep in touch. We have this second connection that she sent me a message and was like, wait, do you know this guy? And I was like, yes, how do you know that guy? And she's like, we just went on a date and like he mentioned his high school. And I was like, boy, that high school sounds so familiar. I wonder why it's so familiar. And she's like, then I realized you went to that high school. But we had graduated high school together. She's married with kids now with him.
That's amazing. Wow. I think that's really special. I mean, unless there's anything else that you wanted to share or talk about, I'm happy to, dive
I'm
into
curious what your
what
favorite memories were. Because like it's amazing to me, like there were so many people on the ship. We all had totally different memories. Like what are some of your favorites?
yeah. I think it depends on the moment, but there are certain places that I think touched me more or affected me more, and India was one of those that just was tremendously eye-opening, and it was probably more the horrific things that I saw that left more of an indelible mark than the beautiful sunset, of which I do have a picture of the Taj Mahal.
But the
But
people, yeah, and the
yeah, I mean, it's like the little boys that are begging in train stations or that are diving into these pits of liquid. I don't even know what it was, like swampy, mossy water. And the idea of me doing that versus them, and they're doing it for sport, for entertainment with these people that are tourists coming through. And I just can't forget that and wonder more than not, well, what was their fate and how fortunate am I with the life that I have versus folks like that. And then just other places that are really, really obscure that I don't imagine I would ever get back to. So when we went to Malaysia, I went to Sarawak and I went to the longhouse with whether they were head shrinkers or warriors. I don't remember what the legacy was of this particular tribe, but it was such a remote place that the idea of me going for any particular reason to the island of Borneo at this point is not something I can really fathom. So to think that I was there and that's part of my story, or going to Cappadocia in Turkey, where I took a bus overnight and I think maybe I drank wine to try to fall asleep while sitting in the back seat and
yep.
got there and, spent a whirlwind 16 hours there before turning back around and coming and doing it again. And so those are some of the things I guess that are starting to become more pronounced in my mind, and I'm going to jostle some memories free that are not as frontal as as they probably will become. So
I meant
um,
I have photo albums somewhere And I meant to dig them out, and I've been traveling so much, I just didn't think about it when I was home. But I have some time off in May, and something tells me I'm gonna dig them up. And in like one or two from each country at some point in my life. And so I've got a couple on my computer, but not many.
Yeah, I think I may even have undeveloped film somewhere. I don't know that anything's going to happen with that at this point in time, but I do have a pretty shoddy album that
Yeah.
has pages that have stuck together at this point in
Right.
time. I will mention I actually was in Florida earlier this week. I got back last night. I was there for a conference, but I was in Hollywood, Florida. And it seemed to me symbolic because here I was in Hollywood, Florida, which was not far from wherever the Port of Miami or wherever that we came back from.
Yeah.
And so obviously I'm lost and looking for meaning in everything, but this was this was where it ended and now it's beginning again. And so it felt like the right way internally to kick this project off. Anyway, well, it has been really my pleasure. It's so great to see you. This is such a delightful walk down memory lane. Some really great things you shared, and I'm delighted to have been able to speak with you.
Yeah, it's been great talking to you.
Thanks for checking out this edition of Voyage of Rediscovery, and don't forget to also check out sas25th.com. That's SAS25th.com for everything fall 1998. We'll see you next time, and remember, if you're not back by 8 p.m., the ship will leave without you.